According to my clock, it's 5 o'clock. And since at this time, none of us are elected as officers, we're essentially a new board. But we have Commissioner Matari here to provide some guidance and oversight as we get started in a maybe a new direction. And so maybe Tim is the only residual member, I think, that Brett and Tim are both. So maybe you could lead us on through one or the other of you guys, and we could start at the top of the agenda.
You, Brett. You're closer as a guy.
We can slide it on down.
I think you can do it.
If I do this, that doesn't mean I'm interested in the permanent. Oh. Okay. All right, we'll call this meeting to order. Let's have a roll call of the airport board. Why don't we start down there?
Mike Kankowski, Chris Nordstrom,
Steve Anderson,
Frank O'Connell,
Ryan Cleary.
Brett Boyer.
Kim Comfort.
Sharon Chester.
Okay, let's stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yes.
As a point of clarification, Eric moved his also online attending guys.
Okay.
So final board member is.
All right, well, welcome, Eric. I know we don't have it on here. We're talking about conflicts of interest. Maybe we'll do it under number 4, but I'd like to, we don't know each other, maybe give a little bit of information about our backgrounds a little bit. So we'll start with, as hopefully you've all had a chance to look at the agenda. If there's any conflicts of interest on any items that we'll be discussing that need to be brought up, now's the time to do that. Okay. Now, Eric hasn't. All right, I don't see any issues with conflicts. So now we'll go to changes to the agenda. It's also an action item. Does anybody have any changes to the agenda?
Just a clarification, this item 10A, identify airport functions to evaluate, and it's listed for action. Understanding is that's basically putting it to the group to discuss at another time, but at this point agree that we're going to identify airport functions to evaluate, but we're not going to do that tonight. We're just going to agree to identify them at some future point. Correct. Okay, so I don't propose any change in light of that clarification.
Okay. With that, I think as just a point of order on this change of the agenda, I think it's appropriate. Just we're all here, the first time, just to take a couple minutes to say who you are and where you're from, and just so we get to know each other. And being here on the board previously, welcome all the new board members. We also have our county commissioner Bruce Matari here that will say a few words here in a few minutes. So with that, why don't we start down there and just go around, and remind me at the end we need to ask Eric.
I'm Mike Kankowski. I've been a hangar owner since 2005. Built my hangar here. I am a commercial rated helicopter pilot. I also have a Kit Fox, and I live local up in Athol, and I'm a retired electrical engineer.
My name is Chris Nordstrom. I don't own a plane and I'm not a pilot. I'm a pilot wannabe, I guess. I'm an aviation enthusiast. I was in the Air Force for 6 years ago. I didn't fly, I did avionics. And then I just retired recently. Well, about 12 years ago, I retired. And that's when we moved up here from information technology, about 35 years in information technology for multinational corporations.
And I'm Steve Anderson. I'm a retired power plant developer. I'm also a private pilot with an instrument rating. I keep a plane here in one of the hangars. And I've been a tenant off and on at the airport since 1981.
My name's Frank O'Connell. I am a private pilot and a hangar owner here. I've been owning a hangar here since 2018, and I've been flying out of this airport since 1989. I'm retired from the forest products industry, worked for a company called Louisiana Pacific, but we've long since left the area and have been retired the last 10 years.
My name is Brian Cleary. I'm a resident since 1997, Coeur d'Alene, and my profession is I deal with environmental litigation, regulation. Been doing that for 32 years. And the airport is within my view site. I live above in the hills, and my son's a former member of the Civil Air Patrol unit here, and that's how I became familiar with the airport. Very interested in it. Always wanted to be a pilot. I'm not one. My air experience is I'm a frequent flyer. But I'm very interested in the airport and attended these sessions remotely when possible. To have a background and interest in it. So look forward to working with all of you.
Thank you. Brett Boyer, on this board, I represent the city of Hayden. The airport represents, we see a lot of people here tonight, represents a lot of different interests and is very important to this community in many ways. And so what we do here, I see is very important. I'm not a pilot. Having a voice for the citizens that live around the airport is important as well. And I try to represent that voice fairly. I did work for United Airlines first, a few summers on the ramp. So in San Francisco. So I've been on the ramp around big airplanes, loading airplanes. I actually got to load a 747. So thanks, Les.
Well, I'm Tim Pomrick. I'm the CEO of Empire Airlines across the way. I've been I'm kind of a two-timer in this area. I was with Empire in the 90s, left to do some other things. I'm a commercial ATP pilot by trade, and kind of worked my way out of airplanes into management over the years. I've been back at Empire since 2000, and we employ about, here on the airport, a little over 200 employees. We've got 350 employees in the company scattered around the western half of the US. Our primary business is FedEx feeder carrier. And our secondary business is Empire Aerospace, which you see across the way, and which has really gained a reputation internationally for doing heavy checks and modifications on large turboprops and regional jets. In fact, we are the preferred provider for large cargo door conversions for the ATRs worldwide right now. So that's who we are. And we're looking for pilots. So if you want to go out there and get trained. There's a difference for mechanics and mechanics in here. So that's who I am. Joan.
Joan Junter. I am retired Air Force, 22 years with a specialty in airfield management. And I also am a local realtor, but I love the airport. I like to be around airplanes. So that's my passion.
Is there capability to hear anything from Eric?
Eric, are you capable?
Yeah, hi there. Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you. I apologize for not being there in person. My name is Eric Mosa. Look forward to meeting you all in person. I was born in Coeur d'Alene. I served 11 years in the Marine Corps as an F-18 pilot. And my wife and I moved back to the area 5 years ago with our 2 little boys. And I'm currently a airline pilot. So deeply involved in the airline industry for my entire adult life. And I really look forward to working with you all, have a positive impact on our airport.
All right. Thank you. We'll move on. I don't know if Jonathan's here, but okay, Jonathan, I haven't met you. Number 5, are you on for that?
Better to stand, maybe the camera. I'm right there. It's a weird camera. Yeah. All right, I'm Jonathan. I work in the Commissioner's office under our Board of County Commissioners. Commissioner Matari asked me to just go over some really quick, brief open meeting law things, because there's some new members. I understand we got a lawyer in the room, a city administrator, and a couple of very, tenured members of the board. So this is probably going to be easy for them, but for the new members, everyone, I just want to go over. One, we do have a new AG, so the things that I'm pulling out are directly from the new AG. Mr. Cleary pointed that out. So print that off. The 5 or 6 things I'm going to go over real quick is one, I want to point out one question we always get is, hey, the board's here, why can't we start the meeting early? Well, you can't. You have to start it right on time, or you can start it late. You can never start it early. It's open meeting law. Everything is an open meeting because this advisory board writes recommendations. And the AG points out that if you write a recommendation to a governing body, you are subject to open meeting law. That being said, the only thing that can really be discussed in private is an executive session. So I just encourage everyone to go through your manuals. I sent everyone this manual. If you need some more, I can get you that. Look at executive sessions. It's the only thing you can really talk about in private. What is subject to public record once you're in a meeting is also important. And 2 more things. Real quick. Deliberation, kind of a big thing, important thing. The deliberation is a receipt or exchange of information or opinion relating to a decision. That's kind of the big important thing with that. And the AG does write that collecting or getting information that can lead to a decision is a form of deliberation. But something to consider. The requirement that open meeting law be complied with whenever a quorum of a governing body needs to deliberate or a decision should not be evaded by holding smaller meetings with less than a quorum present, or by having a go in between contact for each of the governing body members to ascertain her sentiments. Another kind of question we get is, well, I'm going to field calls from people. People are going to call me, and that's fine, as long as you are disclosing that information to public. AG writes, therefore, in the event that unsolicited information is received and considered by a governing board member, the appropriate action is to disclose the source of the information and the substance of the information so that it may be included within the public record. That's pretty much a really quick summary of some of the big things to consider. I know we got a lawyer in the room, so he's you're gonna rely on that. If you have any questions, I'm kind of your county liaison to the VOCC. I can answer any questions, help facilitate anything you need. You need members to get renewed, help you do your recruiting, and help reach to public outreach to answer, of course, any questions members of the public have. So this is like any Q&A if you have any questions. Oh, thank you, sir.
Are there any questions for Jonathan at this time?
I do have a question. I mean, I don't know, not for you, maybe I don't know who it was before, but if I wanted to meet with somebody like the airport manager to learn details about what's happening, what statuses are, things like that, that isn't a direct decision, is that allowed or is that an open meeting?
So it's something that could lead to a possible decision because you're trying to learn something.
Right, but
Which
as
is
long as I
fine.
disclose it.
Which is fine. So, you're in a meeting, right? With the airport, your next airport meeting, hey, I just want to let everyone know I met with airport director to discuss this. You're doing that open meeting. The big thing, important thing. Sometimes an accidental open meeting violation can happen. Cool thing about this manual, it has a curing process on the back.
Right.
The governing body can self-recognize itself. You have 14 days to cure your process. You have a special meeting to allow yourself to announce what was discussed. Boom, you're cured.
Okay, any other questions? All right.
I do have one question.
Oh, sorry.
Are all communications within the confine of a meeting among the governing body members of that meeting to be in the open?
So yes, unless it's an executive session, everything in this meeting needs to be heard. It's a public meeting and the public have the right to hear everything that's being said.
if some of you haven't done it already, one thing that is a good idea is if you identify an email address, set it up particular to the airport board for you, so that your communications regarding the airport board aren't mixed in with your personal stuff. And if it ever came to that, and somebody was seeking a FOIA, those communications, and it's in your personal email box, it's kind of inconvenient to go fish it out. But it's just better to keep it in one account that's dedicated to, here's my email account for airport board related communications.
Now, I have a question about that. So is it possible for any one of us to get a county.gov email address for that purpose?
That is a very common question we get from advisory boards. One thing I did send out to everyone, there was a advisory board guidelines and it has kcair@kcgov.us. Copy all your emails when it's not going to a county employee or just in general, because that's gonna be your carbon copy email, right? So if they need to do a public request, that's always gonna pull up your email that you sent. Because unfortunately, IT has let us know they can't set it up because you're not, even though you are a volunteer that works for the county, you're not a county employee, and it's an IT thing that says no.
What's the email address we should see?
I think it's kcair@kcgov.us. It is on the.
If you got that email that was attached to the agenda, it's down at the bottom of that email, so you can see it.
So I think that address your question.
Yes, sir.
During the Q&A about
just off of the general account, there's 3 members there that sit on the board that are part of the Coeur d'Alene Airport Association. But when they meet, if that doesn't come into open meeting law, what do we need for a forum here? Because I'm confused about the numbers that we've had in the past.
So right now, we filled up our board, we have 7 members, so quorum would be a majority, so it'd be 4.
Okay.
So whenever 4 members are together, that's a quorum. That's kind of the big magic number. The other association is not a government entity. However, if they're gonna discuss stuff that could lead to something that is gonna make a decision on this board or to a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners, that's something they would need to discuss.
Gray area there.
So,
Okay.
yep, thank you. Yes, sir.
So one more question then, because the board size is set at 7. Do the non-voting members, Joan and I, are we included in that definition if we are in a meeting with less than, full quorum?
Sorry, could you say that beginning? I have a
Oh,
bad ear. We all do.
You and
I
me
know.
both.
It's cheating here.
Okay, we've got 2 non-voting members on here.
Yeah,
So when you say that, you're talking a quorum, are we included in that mix? We were talking a board size of 7?
I don't think so.
How do we play into
an
that?
alternate is not because they cannot vote.
Okay.
I think what is going on is we are going to have a set of guidelines set up specifically for alternates too, and that can help clear up any, we just haven't submitted them or completed them yet, because we just, the VLCT just decided to have 2 alternates on the airport board this weekend, and this is meeting, so
Okay.
we'll get that out to you as soon as we do.
So Jonathan, I have another question.
Yes, sir.
So it mentions in some documents that I received that there shall be 9 airport advisory board members. Are the alternates part of that 9, or are they in addition to that 9?
I discovered the same thing, but that document is a guideline though. It's not a resolution or a state statute. And a long time ago, I guess the former board of county commissioners decided they should have 7 regular members across the board just to make it easier. Because we like to have them on staggered schedules. So in case we have appointments, we don't have tons of members all expiring at the same time. We can have some continuity with that.
Okay, I
It's
just
not-
wonder, because the operative word there is shall.
I would say that guideline draft is in our file, and it says 2019 as a draft, so it's
Okay.
probably something that needs to look at.
Also, Jonathan,
Yes, ma'am.
that draft, the quorum does not conform to the Idaho statute of quorum. And so when this board reviews that again, I think they need to look at the definition of quorum.
Why doesn't it? 7, 4 of 7?
It says something other than that. And
Oh,
they,
the guideline is?
yeah, and it's different than the Idaho statute.
So
So we should conform with the statute.
So. Just do the math.
Well, our guideline states a smaller quorum and doesn't define it the way the statute does in Idaho.
So I have to look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
I think it would be, those are good questions. We'll have Jonathan look at it if he wants to look at it as well. We'll move to that, so.
So, one more thing, clarification, is Eric, this open spot here on the list?
Eric is the seventh.
No. So, was this updated in another email that which I didn't look at? That's the last one we got. I thought I printed all that.
And Jonathan,
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, go ahead.
Jonathan, I didn't receive any emails from you, and that could be because the two alternates were appointed just recently. But will we be included on those kinds of emails?
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Oh, I did want to pop up one thing that does happen frequently, is sometimes last minute things occur. And if you need to administratively schedule a meeting, that is totally allowed. The chair can call a meeting. That's usually a typical guideline. Say the board of county commissioners last minute, like, hey, we need the airport to write a recommendation on this thing that just popped up. Then you're able to schedule that meeting. Maybe something within 24 hours needs to get changed. You might have to amend the agenda, and that's totally fine. There's a complete kind of guide in this guideline on how to amend the agenda, and it's just as long as you're transparent about everything you're doing and saying at your open meeting, that's kind of the main goal for that thing.
But don't we have to give appropriate notice to the public?
So
Special meetings,
special meetings, 24 hours, 24-hour notice, you have to have physical notice and the agenda posted, both, since we have an online presence, both online and physically. But you can, if it's, say, something within 24 hours happens and you need to amend and maybe you need to add something. It's totally appropriate as long as the urgency of what you're doing is discussed and discussed.
You have to state a reason why it's.
It's not on the agenda.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for that information, Commissioner. The time is now. Thank you. And welcome everyone to the Airport Advisory Board. And thank you to the public for showing up tonight. I don't believe that there's been a meeting this crowded in recent history. I represent the board. I spoke with them yesterday. They agreed. I just wanted to go over just some of the direction for you folks on the advisory board, just to make sure things are very clear. The Airport Advisory Board reports directly to the VOCC. You do not have any fiduciary to any other entity except the VOCC. And your job is to help advise us on matters related to the airport. Your job is not to affect the operations of the airport. I want to be very clear about it. Your job is to get the information, package it, and present it to the VOCC so we can make decisions as a board. We want you to seek information and to provide the guidance and recommendations, like I said, to the VOCC. The airport management is to reasonably assist and report on any issues that it believes may be unreasonable or anything like that. But in the end, I think both of you can work together on any kind of information requests, and conversely, you can provide information from the management fairly simply. And the hope is that you work together and that each of you, the two entities, airport management and the advisory board, report to the VOCC, and we can make good decisions for the airport and for the community. I would like the advisory board to evaluate some of the processes and procedures and documentation and matters that may be brought before the VOCC. And when I say I'm representing the VOCC when I say this. I've gotten some feedback from various folks who have used the airport in various different ways. And I just kind of want to reevaluate the lease application process. I'd like the board to look at the leases coming through the airport and then eventually set some criteria on what should be looked at and what shouldn't be looked at. We had some issues during the last VOCC where the Airport Advisory Board did not even get the Avports lease to review beforehand, which is a significant lease for the community, bringing commercial service. I'd like to look at a complete management system. And these are best practices. I come from the investing and finance background. So when a customer files a complaint, we have to document that, we have to show resolution, we have to show all these different things. So that if someone wants to look at it, it can be audited and reviewed and analyzed. Communication procedures with airport stakeholders. I'd like the airport advisory board to take a look at that. And any other processes that may affect the airport stakeholders. And then I just want to take a moment just to discuss the role of the alternates. They are non-voting members, but they can participate in the discussions. No different than how Joan and I were as alternates on the optional forms of government study commission. Non-voting members. And with that, I am happy to take any questions. And one last thing, you definitely want to look at the bylaws or the recommendation that you all have a copy of and update that to reflect 7 members, 2 alternates. I thought that the documentation inside there of what the advisory board should be doing was pretty thorough. If there's some things in there that you want to modify and make recommendations on, go for it, and then just send that to the BOCC. Have a final look. Are there any questions I could answer for you?
I do have one, Bruce. Of course, I haven't received the information, Jonathan, yet, but on the website, there are basically 4 bullet points and for advisory board. The second bullet point goes to acting as a public liaison or liaison to the public and the board of county commissioners. And how do you see us accomplishing that? Because, for example, on the airports matter, that one really didn't come out to anyone until the lease was presented on December 27th meeting. I felt all along it should have been disclosed widely earlier because it's such a big decision. Going forward with this board, how do you see us accomplishing that? Would that be something that we would defer to the BOCC on, or do you see us having some independent function in doing that?
No, you have the independent function. If you want to hold like a public comment meeting and get feedback from the public, by all means, that's helpful.
A good example would be when we were going through the different schematics and things for the airport. We had open public meetings, and those of us on the board were there as a liaison with the public. So that could be another way to do that.
But for sure, getting public feedback, I think, is important. And it actually discusses that in the document, that outdated document you're going to be working on.
Hey, Bruce, I have a question. There have already been a couple of articles referencing that possibility of airports developing here. And, there is a possibility that a journalist would contact any one of us and ask our opinion on it. How far can we go with that?
I mean, you obviously cannot speak for the advisory board,
But as a private citizen,
it's just one of those things you have to make it clear you're not representing.
okay, and I haven't been approached, but I'm just saying what if, because it could happen.
That's going to be your decision, but you just have to make it clear that if you do speak with the press, that you are giving your views and not the advisory boards. As an advisory board, you act as one.
And beyond that, I would add, I had a little experience in a prior study commission where the chair of it took it upon himself to write a letter to the press without ever consulting any of the other members of the board. And the appearance of it, if you read it, it had the appearance that the board was saying this. And it caused discord within the board. So, to the degree to which people write letters to the editor or board members, it should be clear you were just writing as a citizen and individual and disclaim any board, speaking to the board. So.
Yeah, and as a commissioner, not speaking for the board, I would be pretty disappointed if it turned out that there were members on the advisory board that were making statements that could potentially undermine the board acting as one. So my hope is that everyone really works together to get to the right answers, the best answers for the airport and the community.
I might suggest that we take that up a little further. Right, one of the things that we do, we have a procedure because we get calls from the press all the time. And they may call
one of my employees or whatever. So we have procedures in place that if a call comes in, that it's routed like through me. Now with, say the mayor or we have a city council, they technically, like what you stated, they can speak on their own, but they have to be very careful to say they're not speaking on behalf of the board. Because, as Brian mentioned, that creates issues, and we represent BOCC, so it might be that we can route some of those requests to the press folks at the county and get some help on that as well. So, yeah. Thank you. Any other questions?
The only other thing I might suggest is just considering using Robert's rules. Good idea. And if that's it, thank you again, and welcome, and thank you all for being here.
All right, thank you. The next item that we have on our agenda tonight is election of officers. We have action items here. I will open this up now for discussion. We have chairman and vice chairman. As no one is there, is there someone that has given that some thought that would like to serve in that capacity? Oh, Brian.
I'll put my name in for chairman.
Okay. Is there anybody else that would like to put their name in as chairman?
I'd like to nominate somebody.
Other than Brian?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Stephen Amos.
Okay.
I'll second that motion.
All right, are there any other, does anybody else want to make a motion? We have two.
Did you want
Two
to take them in
names.
sequence? You're sticking with
Yeah.
chairman right now, right?
So we have, Brian has put his name in. Is there anybody that would like to make a motion to put him on this slate?
I would take a second motion to put Brian Williamson.
Okay. Do I have a second on that motion? I'll second. You can.
Yes.
But you would
Second
like to
that?
second that? Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second on that. You know, Jonathan, when we have more than one candidate there, it's almost like a slate. I think we can also, I don't think it's right to just vote on that. We should probably have the slate and then vote on the slate.
Point of order, I think there's some discussion is
Yes.
appropriate if there is any. But I think, didn't you specifically say as vice chair or did you say?
Did you say vice chair?
No.
Chairman, okay, so we have two candidates for chair.
So, okay. I'll take, I'm stepping out a little bit out of on order here. Let's see. We have another one. We've got a motion and a second on another candidate for Steve Anderson. And so we've got two motions. Let's have discussion on that. Maybe there could be some discussion about one being chairman and one being vice chair. So any comments and thoughts on that? Since we've got two candidates, so
Well, I think
the next action is
technically didn't broach the issue of vice chair yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
It's on the motion.
Okay.
You have to vote or discussion and then vote on the motion.
Okay, let's have discussion on this. So what we're discussing right now is we have two motions and 2 seconds, and we're not following exactly the Robert's Rules of Order on this. But we've got two there. So let's have discussion on how you would like to proceed with this.
So I would just suggest,
Please.
that maybe each of the proposed candidates maybe speak to why they're interested in that position or the qualifications.
That's a really good idea.
So, because none of us know each other, so. maybe
Yeah,
we
we're
should talk to
talking
them.
about it.
So,
Stephen, you want to go ahead and start with that?
Sure. As was pointed out by Aaron, I'm also a member of the Coeur d'Alene Airport Association Board.
And I've been actively following what's been going on with the airport for at least the last 2 years. Have been to many commissioner meetings and have been to all of the airport advisory board meetings that I've been able to attend. I've offered my input to the commissioners. I've offered my input to this board before. I feel very comfortable that I'm aware of many of the issues that are currently in the forefront here at the airport. There may be others, and I'm open to that, but as a person that is out here on a very regular basis, flying and communicating with others that have similar interests, I think I'm able to communicate those. I'm gonna have to brush up on the Robert's Rules of Order because it's been a while since I've used those, but I've been a board member at Kootenai Electric. I've been a board member at various other organizations that don't have the same stature, but I do believe that I could carry out the interests of the board and act to guide the board to the extent that it's appropriate.
Right, okay. One of the roles that is often held by the chairman is to remain silent and facilitate discussion among board members. That is the reason that I think I would most like to be chairman, because one of the parts of that role is to facilitate that discussion, to draw out information from board members, particularly those who are using this airport and have information to bring. That chairman is in a neutral zone. The chairman puts the agenda together, yes, and does have the ability to drive issues as chairman by virtue of putting things on the agenda. But the true role of a chairman of a board is to be a neutral facilitator and to not take a position until it is necessary to take a position, and to draw on those who comprise the board to provide that information to each other in a dialogue in an open meeting format. And using Robert's Rules of Order, which I would recommend here, to do that. That is, my work is largely in very contentious matters involving states, federal government, Indian tribes, where people don't get along. They're high dollar value matters, and they take years upon years. And in that role, what I have seen is essentially facilitators who act as chairmen of the discussion, can bring people together from opposite ends of the spectrum around an issue. And I see in a growing community like ours, there are many viewpoints. Each of you bring a different viewpoint from that community, or perhaps synonymous ones, to this commission, this board. And as chairman, my commitment would be to try to draw that out of people, have a good discussion, keep it civil at all times, and then come to a conclusion and not weigh in with my vote unless it was really necessary. I would vote, but I would reserve and hold back from that until it really became necessary. A chairman's not to boss people around, drive discussion out the door, it's to facilitate it. So that's kind of my view of that role. And I respect those that have great experience and kind of tenure in the airport. But I think in my role, I would be trying to draw that out into the discussion. So that's all I have to say.
So I'm looking at this, and normally at this point, a lot of times in organizations like that, you're bringing forward a slate of officers. And so now that we have two motions on the table, I'm not quite sure to handle that other than to say, I see this as a slate of two candidates that we would vote on here.
Just take each one up one by one, right? One's gonna win, one's not.
Right.
So take them alphabetically. I don't care to take whichever comes first and take a vote and then vote on the next one. Right?
All right, we'll do that. So we'll call for a vote, and this will be, we'll just do it by a raise of hands. Is there any other discussion before we have a vote on chairman?
Question, roll call, I think.
You want to do it by roll call?
Sure.
Okay, we normally have, so it might be, my meetings, we have, you do roll call, do I do roll call? Wait,
You're acting chair, so you probably play.
okay, our clerk usually does the roll call, so I'm doing it.
Oh, it's true. We don't have-
Yeah, I am, I can confirm, we did have roll call at the beginning of the meeting, we do have a forum, we also have Eric online. And so we will do this vote first alphabetically for,
Actually,
Yeah.
I would like one more bit of discussion. While I feel that I could be objective and try very hard to do that. My biggest concern is that we are able to discuss issues that may be controversial, will have people on both sides and I think having someone that is impartial. I'm not trying to shoot myself in the foot because I think I could handle this, but I think I would like to withdraw my name from the nomination if I can do that. And make this easy, that if we have an attorney that's open-minded, is willing to listen to all of us, as he says he is. To all stakeholders and to put the energy into this board that I think is going to be necessary as we move forward in a way that's different than we've operated in the past. I would throw my support behind Brian and withdraw my name.
okay, we withdraw your motion.
Yes.
Okay, the motion is been withdrawn, and so we have a motion to accept Brian Clary as the chairman, and we'll do a roll call vote on that.
Yeah, we have a motion and a second.
So we have a motion and a second, and no other discussion?
And Eric on the phone has no discussion.
Okay,
No, he's shaking his head no.
so we will by roll call vote on this.
Okay,
I
I have the list here, so if you go.
Go ahead.
I'll volunteer to be the secretary.
Okay,
So,
Let's see.
okay, all in favor of Tim Cleary as chairman of the board?
we're gonna do as roll call vote.
Yes,
mean-
I know, that's what I'm stating,
So,
and then I'm gonna call the names.
okay, go ahead.
That's Stephen Anderson. Stephen Anderson, here,
Nay.
well,
So the motion is for chairman.
the vote is for chairman,
Brian,
Brian, sorry, Brian.
Brian
I'm sorry,
Clary. And so we're voting for chairman now,
For Brian Cleary.
Brian Clary, we're doing it by roll call, so he's going to call your name. Or call the name in order that he has on there, vote aye or nay. And then,
Okay, so I'll vote aye for.
Okay.
Brian.
all right,
Eric? On phone?
Aye, aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Come here. Brian? Oh, you want to just.
he can vote.
He can, but he may choose to abstain, whatever.
Yeah.
Brett,
Aye,
Michael,
Aye.
and I vote aye. So, Brian, you want to just make it unanimous?
He already did.
he did, so that is unanimous, and that motion carries, and so Brian Clary will be our chair moving forward, so you want me to continue the meeting? Do you want to take over?
Hand it over, Brett.
Well, like, pause. Before the Commissioner Matari?
Yes.
Before you and Jonathan leave, one other point, if we have a meeting and we have action items. And we don't have a quorum, but we have two alternates. Can we make one of them a voting member? Can we rewrite the bylaws to do that?
Propose it,
Okay,
propose how you want this to work.
okay, that's what I wanted to do. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you all, have a good evening, appreciate that. Okay, item 7B, similar action to vote in a vice chairman. That person would act in the absence of the chairman, would run the meetings and assist in those duties as chairman, as mentioned in our bylaws. So at this point, I will entertain any motions for candidates for vice chair?
I would like to nominate Steve.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Are there any other motions? Okay, any other discussion on this? I don't know. Okay, let's call the question. We'll go through the roll call, same procedure then.
Right, all if you're in favor, vote aye, if not, vote no. Steve Anderson. Aye. Eric,
Aye.
Tim Comeric. Aye. Brian Cleary.
Aye.
Brett Hoyer,
Aye.
Michael.
Aye.
So it's unanimous.
Okay, another unanimous decision for chairman and vice chairman for the airport board. Next item of business is item 8, approval of minutes from the previous meeting, dated January 11th, 23. Is there any discussion? You ready for a motion to approve the minutes from that meeting?
Second.
Okay. There's a motion and a second on the meeting minutes from January 11th, 23. Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor of approval of the minutes, but just do so by raising your hand.
All right.
Aye. Okay, that's also unanimous. Moving to item 9, staff reports and updates and discussion. Stephen, is that you?
Yep, that'll be me. The staff reports, not much has changed since last month. The only change is we are opening bids for 64 projects. And that's it. Nothing else has changed. As for minimum standards discussion, due to this being a new board, we're not really gonna have a discussion. We'll be calling out the changes here to the board, after this. So that'll give you a month to review and discuss any kind of things you'd like to look at. It's a fairly minor item that we should move this year, nothing significant. It was actually requests and changes from tenants that have made this change. Creation of a limited FPO and an issue that was found by Stanford when we had a Stanford with their specifically when we noticed store rentals when their use of hangar tenants and things like that, to commercial operators and things like that. So once we send out those items,
So on the minimum standards, you'll send that out for the next meeting and we put it up. Okay.
What this the ongoing projects that you said there's no major changes, is that just documented anywhere?
it's in the sheet. Yeah.
Okay, is that us, it and separate?
That's it.
Okay, are there any questions for Stephen on any of that?
And Ardura is the new TO, or is that?
Our jury is TO. They were purchased September. They transitioned their name as of January 1.
TO is.
Engineer.
Okay, we'll move on to item 10, business. That's identify airport functions to evaluate. It does list as action. And as Brian mentioned earlier, I mean, we can briefly discuss that, but it's not mentioned, I guess, intended tonight to take action, but kind of just briefly discuss to say, start thinking about this. Is that the intent of this? I don't know who put this item on the agenda, so I'm not.
Yeah, I think Bruce
put it on
put it
there.
on. I think
Okay.
that's where we need to have a discussion about what action items we need for next time.
So I would propose that there are a couple of things that have been addressed previously and need to be readdressed. I think the most important issue that we have some responsibility for here is safety. And the AWAS system is something that we've taken a look at in the past. We've had comments on it. I think that we have additional information that we can bring forward And would like to be able to look at the ways that we could improve the AWAS system. The other one, also related to safety. And I think it's moving through the process. I'm not exactly sure where it is. But there's discussions about a control tower or a virtual control tower. Those are two of the safety issues that come to mind immediately. Another issue is going to be efficiency and that comes to play with some of the ongoing maintenance type things like snow removal and runway closures and those types of things. So those are the things that I see that are airport functions that need some further discussion and possibly action.
Okay. Took notes on those, I think also. Commissioner Matari, he mentioned several things too that probably fit in this category. I made note of them. There was
The complaint management
them.
system,
Yeah.
he had set standards for reviewing leases,
lease application
lease
process,
application
leases,
process.
complaint management, best management practices, communication. Looking at our roles, looking at some of the issues with the alternates, maybe looking at that and clarifying it. So those are some items.
Well, they said we need to, one of the action items is to redo the bylaws for the board.
And I don't think they're truly bylaws. I think they were.
Guidelines, whatever.
resolution that was signed by the,
Well, I think whatever we do, we have to submit it to the board to get their approval.
right, but we have a document that needs to be reviewed and
Yes.
updated.
And my thinking there was that since you guys are attending the meetings regularly, the alternates, whoever the alternates are. If we don't have a forum and something needs to be, an action item needs to be taken, could we elevate that alternate? Which is what the purpose of an alternate is. I mean, that's what happens in a jury pool, and alternates step in.
Actually, if I understood the commissioners correctly, the alternates are here to make sure there's continuity in case a board member, who's a
Leaves.
voting member,
Agreed.
leaves.
Agreed.
And I pretty sure, listening to that discussion, that what they had intended was that that be the case, that it not be some member just didn't show up for one meeting. It's and then the alternate stepped in. They meant if some board member just permanently dropped off.
Well, it would be more than one would have to not show up for it to not have a quorum, but anyway.
Yeah.
One thing, so
I had asked Bruce that question directly yesterday, and what Brian's saying is absolutely correct, because he said in the event that they had a board member resigned for any reason, he said that now would give us an opportunity to either elevate an alternate to that position or get somebody entirely new. But the intention wasn't just to have somebody fill in meetings and somebody was absent.
Okay, and so who's the other alternate?
It's both Joe and I.
Oh, you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's doing it. I think, the list is. There's quite a bit. We need to prioritize maybe looking at them. Stevens mentioned. Multiple ones. I think. Perhaps the chair and alternate could talk with maybe on the administrative side and come up with. Maybe a priority of ones that we should start with at our next meeting. Unless you all feel that we can tackle that, there's a lot that we just mentioned.
Since this is going to take a little bit of a learning curve, but also because it's not a regular meeting, it's going to be a fact finding kind of meeting. I think it calls for a special meeting. Other than the regular meeting, regular business. Meeting.
Something I would suggest is on this item tonight for action, I think it's to agree and move and approve, like the actual, we agree that we need to identify airport functions to evaluate, not necessarily list all those at this meeting and then.
In other words, so you'll have
So at our next meeting.
Here's
what we want to do.
The next meeting. we
Take small bites.
So
My plan was to, originate a list and build a list. And then act on those items in the future, if you know where we can do anything on them tonight,
Right.
just to identify, because I had several I wanted to have.
We're brainstorming
There's a
tonight
lot there.
to get a preliminary idea of things. people
Right.
may
That's,
have.
that's a perfectly good way to
We
do
should
it.
have another meeting. Right now, we're just gonna agree vote that this is something we're going to.
This, these items are on the
Yes.
list.
So let's just put it back on as a regular item in our next agenda. Then we'll talk, we'll brainstorm through them, and then maybe we can also prioritize. This group can decide, hey, here's the next ones we want to work on.
Would I have then an opportunity to increment that list at that next meeting?
Yeah, so we'll just put that on.
That might be a homework.
Well, I wonder though, if you have to, if you have to list them on the agenda, and if you have to change the agenda,
Well, we identify it as a subject matter on the agenda,
right?
but each of the board members and alternates who come to the meeting with their list. We don't coordinate before.
Okay, so you don't want to have that list done before next, week,
Well, I think you should do it individually, come to the meeting, so we have it
and then
here in
discuss
an
it.
open
Okay.
discussion.
And you think another month is good for that, or well, I
But-
guess it's only 2 weeks.
Even with that, you know, all 10 items. I think if we make it broad enough that we're just discussing these items, we can brainstorm and discuss these items that have come up, and then. Because we're not gonna take, I don't see us taking action on this specific item. We're kind of.
Right. Well,
This.
or just that it needs more investigation. or
Yes,
something like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
And then, like you said, triage, prioritize.
Yeah, and I guess there would be an option to, correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, to, have a subcommittee to work on some of these things and bring back to the larger group if it takes.
I think we could decide that
Right.
at the next meeting, decide if you want to have like a subcommittee, or if you want to have a special meeting. As you mentioned, and continue that kind of stuff, so.
Well, either way, if it's a subcommittee, it'll have to be an open meeting.
Yes,
No,
No,
not if they
no.
don't exceed the quorum requirement. You can do that with subcommittees as
No,
well.
they said specifically, you can't have a smaller meeting that doesn't have a quorum in order to have a private meeting.
If it's a serial meeting, you can't do
If it's a what?
that. That's the intent. So if it was a serial meeting, but if your intent is to like. Be chained to get to a decision, that breaks the open meeting law,
Right.
but you can have subcommittees at times that are.
Oh, subcommittees are fine, but subcommittees have to be open. Pretty
But if
sure.
you got them deliberating separate from a meeting, as long as you're doing it at the direction of the board.
Yeah, if they're,
Or
if they're making a decision, if the subcommittee's making a decision, and
No
they're gonna
decision.
bring to this group for a vote, then that's gotta be.
it
an
would
open
be
meeting.
a decision, it would just be gathering material. to bring
Information.
back.
you're gathering and coming back
Okay,
here, usually
I think you probably should have clarification
I
on
can
that.
clarify
We-
if you want, you know, in prior, like in the study commission,
Yeah,
our bylaws allowed for. And.
well, the
These kinds of
bylaws,
things.
the bylaws can't allow you to skirt open meeting law.
Oh, we didn't.
So let's,
Okay,
we'll double check with the county on that. Our experience has been, if it is something, like in one of our subcommittees, that is going to come up. Probably for a vote or expenditure, then we usually
Well,
do set it as a public meeting.
just as an FYI, one of the reasons I think why the open meeting law is important is because there may be stakeholders who want to have input into that list and fleshing it out or whatever that subcommittee's charter is.
So my preference would be to have, to do this in a more timely way, rather than wait till the next month's meeting. Which, you know, if we wanted to, as board, have a special meeting, short of that, depending on people's schedules, we want to make sure everybody can make it. Where we just focus on this and people
Right.
bring
Well,
forward
that's
their
kind of
ideas, and we also receive public comment at that meeting, just. That would be my suggestion,
So,
people will hear it and we can take some comment.
so I've heard two ways to do this now. One is to set a special meeting and then discuss and come up with them. And I've also heard to take this item to the next meeting and then work on it which would be a public meeting, and work on it there.
Well, the special meeting would be a public meeting also.
No, well, if we had special meeting also is public, but it's not the normal,
Right, it wouldn't be a regular business meeting.
correct?
So,
So does the board have a preference?
I have
On it?
a comment. If I might. My experience is let's not bite off more than we can chew. Let's find 2 or 3 things that we can work on and make progress on. Then we can move from there to there to there. So for us to have a complete list, as we get to work together and know each other, and as we understand the process in the airport, our priorities might change. Steve's lived with it. but a lot of the rest of you haven't. So my recommendation is let's not overtax. Let's not try to do everything in 30 to 60 days.
We can all come up with a list of our we can submit that to the group, and then we can discuss it and then decide what the priority is. If that-
So I have.
Okay, go ahead.
So I agree with what Tim is suggesting. I don't think we want to overload ourselves and it's going to be very necessary to prioritize, but we've got a big crowd here tonight and they're stakeholders that they have issues and we need to define a conduit to get access to this group with issues that they may bring forth that we haven't brought forth. And so I don't know how that would work if it's okay for them to reach out to us individually, or if they ought to focus on the chairman and he distributes the information on to us at the next meeting. I don't know how that is. I just know that we need to have that conduit.
That would be allowed. They can send us even email as long as we make that public at the next available meeting and any discussions and decisions that come from it is at an open meeting. That's perfectly allowed. I'm pretty sure. But I'm not a lawyer.
Yeah, and I'm not the chairman the next time, but I tell you, having it focused to like one person so that people know where to send it, and then it comes back out is probably a better process, because you might get one person that just sends it to one person, and then that information doesn't really get.
All I'm saying is sending it via email to the chairman would be fine.
So and that could be an item for discussion. There's two ways I could see it right now. Administratively, somebody could contact, the airport administrator and provide that, hey, there's an item that we want to do. The other is tonight we have public comment on here, and we'll take some public comment here in a while, and that could be brought up by anyone that, hey, we'd like you to look at this. Take it up.
So it's a couple ideas on the table, and I mean, it's all for consideration, but one of the things that I do think, if there's, the airport administrator, if the comments go there, and the job is to gather, so long as that's within the function of the airport administrator, they're able to do it.
Are we talking about the airport director or the airport?
Yeah, so what I'm saying is, it come to one person, whether that be the chair or someone in airport administration that's designated, and we say, you can submit comments there, because then they can compile them, bring them.
It could go to both, or
We have the KCAir.kc.gov website, or email address. That then can just be forwarded to everybody.
That's what I was.
Is that okay with you?
That wouldn't go to any of us individually, it'd go to all.
Let's go to everyone. But I do think, like, looking at this agenda, item, just jumping back a minute, I think the intention on that agenda item was to populate a list. So if there are more than three, I don't think the quantity is the idea. The idea is to say, okay, here is, going forward, some of the tasks that we need to consider. And as Tim said, very well could be the priorities and change. Something that's on that list gets resolved through other means before we even get to it. But I think what Bruce is really looking at is, okay, I want to know what the concerns are out there. I know a lot of folks out here have concerns that I have on my list that I wanted to add. Just as items, I mean, we don't have to resolve all of them tonight. That certainly was not the intent. But there are things to look at and to think about and discuss, among the board, and the board may decide that, if there's an issue there that I identify, they come back and they don't want to deal with it. And that's fair too, but I think the idea is to populate a list so that we've got something going forward.
Something to work for next time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or the time after that,
And
6
maybe
months down the road.
one of the things that would help me a lot is some discussion about the items. And what's the intensity of the item? How complicated is it? How long will it take us to resolve? We need to spend more time on it. And then we can, once we see that, then we can prioritize, say, well, this one's next,
Right.
this one's next, and so forth.
So we're not going to be able to accomplish that tonight,
No.
unless we're here, real long time. So really, we need a list of the items. Do you want to list those, some of your thoughts here? Do you want to think about it and come back to the next meeting? I would say that the list is started for us. We've got what our commissioner gave us, and then we also have 4 things that Stephen Anderson gave us. And we can build that list at the next meeting and then strategize. Or we can submit.
I move
Your
that
thoughts?
I move that we wait until the next meeting, bring the additional issues as they occur to us. And flesh out the rest of the list at the next meeting, at the special meeting.
Okay, is there a second on that?
I'll second that one second.
Okay, any other?
I second that.
Oh, was there?
That's there.
All right, thanks, Eric. All right, let's take a vote. Just by,
One of the discussion, is it a special meeting or?
Yeah, that's what we have to decide. Is it-
we said at our next meeting, so I assumed that was our regular meeting.
Okay, well, that's.
Is that what you
that's to be decided.
intended with your motion?
No, my intent was at a special meeting
Yeah.
that we call between now and next month.
Okay,
What's? If we do a special meeting, we're asking this group to come out here again.
Not necessarily. I mean, I'm hoping that they're all listening to what we're saying. If they've got issues, they can bring those forward to the airport director or get it to the
Casey here.
Casey Air.
Email.
And so,
I have one
Yes.
possible comment, which is maybe bring that up just to special meeting, discuss it. The public sees it, but then they get time to chew on it. We can have comment then, but we could also have comment at our regular.
Agreed, that's sure. We don't have to make any decisions at a special meeting.
It just puts it to the next month, but it gives the public time to digest what is said at the
Right.
special.
All right,
What we think the list is, at least the initial.
All right.
So we're gonna be receiving input in the meantime
Right.
from it.
No, but at the special meeting, we would create the list
right.
We create the list, but there would be an opportunity
for more.
for the public to interact
Exactly. That's what I'm
via
saying. There
email
would
if
be-
they want or phone call. And then we would populate a list
And there wouldn't be
with
any,
their input.
there wouldn't be any decision made, just the list and whatever
Just make a
information
list.
we have. And the public can comment on it and we can even think about it and then come back and discuss it again at the regular. meeting.
all right, we will provide this email, or administratively, you can get this email. It's the kcair@kcgov.us. If we could focus any items to that. So we are going to need to just amend and then on this motion, then we need to set the date and time of this special meeting.
What's the email address?
It's kcair@kcgov.us.
AIR.
So that is the county website.
Here.
Email address is just Casey Air with one mail line.
It just- So let's go back to the motion and amend this, or actually as part of discussion, let's talk about what day you would want to set a special meeting and then we'll. just-
Well, I think Coach also needs to make a motion that we call a special meeting.
Yeah, I think that's what Steve did, but I'll second
You'll
that
second
motion.
for a
that
special
we have
A special meeting and then what we're gonna discuss on the agenda at that meeting.
So it's a friendly amendment and we would set it as a special meeting and, figure out the date and we can add that into the.
Now, I'm gonna suggest a week from today so that we have that done before the next scheduled meeting.
Well, so do we have to vote on the special meeting that we're gonna have though, and
Yeah, we're gonna add the date
Oh, okay.
to that motion, so just hang on for that thought for now, right?
So
I was gonna include, like, if we come up with a date and time, so under discussion here, you do need to vote on setting a special meeting. And you can include the date and time as part of that motion, so we can amend that, so let's, as part of this discussion. I've heard set it next week, that's the 22nd,
Right.
same time,
That's
Wednesday.
That's fine.
And at 5 o'clock.
Also,
At 5 o'clock, and it would be,
here.
here, is that administratively, Stephen, does that work? Do you have any suggestions?
We have to check internally right now. Yeah. I don't know. We have to check.
And what would be the criteria that you would be checking for, the room availability?
Staff wise, we're having to do some stuff internally.
So then we really couldn't vote on a specific time in the meeting unless we know that it's
Yeah,
available.
so.
Okay, so
Stick with the
then
special
let's
meeting.
vote on to have special meeting and then administratively, you will send out options for the date and time.
We'll verify with the chair.
Right, right,
Yeah.
and then the chair can put it on the meeting and on the agenda and then post the notice. And of course, send us email.
So we have then a motion to set a special meeting and a second. And we've had discussion. Let's go ahead and vote on that. All in favor of a special meeting?
Aye.
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 Eric?
He's raising his hand and I.
Yes, okay. So that's set. We'll hear administratively when those dates can work.
I think that takes care of item 11.
Okay, yeah, item 11 was to schedule a future special meeting. I don't know if there was anything else that somebody had in mind. Again, I didn't put this agenda together, so I'm blank.
I think that was it. I think Commissioner McCary assumed we would need a special meeting to do some of this.
Let's go do some of this. Okay. Then if we're okay, I'm gonna move on to public comment. And let's see, how do we want to do this? Yeah, why don't we make public comment? Where do they need to stand? Just over here, Steve?
Yeah.
Could, if you could stand up, I'll acknowledge you. If you could come up here, state your name. Maybe and who you're with.
Yep.
And keep it to.
I'll keep it quick. Kurt Bauer, Coeur d'Alene Aviation. Something I think that probably needs to go on the agenda. It's my assumption, mine as well as other business owners at the airport. It's known the frustrations that the OCC's had with the current airport director. It's the belief that a termination is coming in the very near future for him. So,
Okay, that's a point of order. We shouldn't be discussing any personnel matters in this meeting.
No, that's an executive.
Yeah, that's something for another type of meeting, so I'll throw that out. If you have something general.
the general question is, if that were to come, is there an interim director and possible who's being looked at for a permanent position? And the reason I understand, the reason I bring this up is there's a lot of things that are moving along. Not the outports thing, but a lot of other things that will affect the business owners. So I wanted to get that out there and kind of get it on.
It's just,
on the-
yeah, it's just not appropriate to talk about in this meeting, any kind of.
Yeah, I can't see an agenda item for this meeting or the next meeting. It has to be an executive session and we don't even know if anything's gonna happen. So,
Yeah, so, okay, did you have anything else off that topic?
Yes, second question, the limited FBO, how that looks for the approval of the limited FBO.
You know, this group, this is the first night here. They haven't had a chance to look at the changes to that, so I don't think that's something we can comment on tonight. Okay, but duly noted, you're interested in that and concerned with it. So that will be on our next agenda. Okay, so, yeah, thank you. Okay, yes, could you stand and?
Yes, my name is Tom Logan, and my comment is, I want to see if we can quit dumping in front of our hangars. I'm not asking them to clean snow off our hangars, but they were putting their berms across, we can't get our airplanes out, it turns to solid ice. This has happened time after time, and I'm requesting that we fix that.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead. You give us your name and.
Yep. Ann Anderson, and just a suggestion for this advisory board, there's 7 of you now. And if you each took kind of a quadrant of the airport to be super familiar with, and each year you rotate that, then you know every user and know their issues. And it just would make for an efficient management.
I'm sorry, what was the original suggestion? Meet with all
Each
those?
advisor takes a portion of the airport, 7 sections, 7 quadrants. They individually become familiar with each individual user. And each year you switch which quadrant you're in. So then you're familiar with the whole airport in a very intimate way. Because a pilot, a general aviation pilot should not have to be being worried about a berm in front of his hangar. Just a suggestion.
Wait, can I make a comment on that? Am I? Because I saw.
I'll recognize you.
Okay, good.
Go ahead. You can make a comment. I mean, recognize you.
All right, well, some of us here are not pilots, so we're not here all the time. We're not familiar with the area, but I think Ann has a very good idea, and I think we can. Maybe a few of us who are pilots, we can take that on, and I think a lot of us have. And I know guys in the audience here and gals that they already do that, and so we can get feedback that way. And I think that's what I think of all of us who are pilots here, we're pretty well connected with that, but I would say it is a good idea.
Okay, thank you.
So owners and operators, or owners and lessees of hangars, is that it? That's what we're talking about?
Anybody that operates here.
Well, I'll just even add for Mr. Nordstrom. If you're familiar with whatever quadrant, there are parts of the airport that doesn't have necessarily a user. But there's systems there, sewer systems.
Yeah, I know, there's places out there where there's no, except.
Yeah, but
feel
there's
like-
that matter to all the users, so it's important for everyone to know. What's the VOR, especially the non-pilot, what's the importance of that?
Yeah. Thank you for the idea. Did you?
My comment is I think that in the orientation of the new advisory board member, they should be familiar with the airport.
Yes,
And they should get a tour.
Yes.
They should get an understanding.
Yes.
And-
Thank you.
Yeah, and not to make it less than what your suggestion is also, but I don't know how you could be on this board and not understand the basic, at least the basics of the function of the airport. And you're all smart people who figure it out. And then you're right, we do have the pilot specific on the board that may understand the more complex issues of, why we're worried about a loss. So
This is why I think a special meeting is required, because then they can impart some wisdom to us who are not pilots and owners. So we can help understand what the issues.
I have another comment too, is access, how do the non-pilots that don't have a prox card get in here? I mean, it's like, you don't know, you're stopped at the gate, so I.
Bring that up as part of the discussions. So are there any other public comments? Yes, come on. up.
Yeah, I'm Harry Craviotto. I'm president of the Coeur d'Alene Airport Association. And I just want to say that we've had numerous pancake breakfasts. We have monthly meetings, and all are welcome to join our association. It's not very expensive. It's like $10 a year. So anyway, I just wanted to let you know that we are active and doing things at the airport. We have numerous lively discussions at our meetings.
Your name one more time?
Yep.
Harry Craviotto.
I just want to mention, Harry's been coming to these meetings most of the time for a long time, and I appreciate what you do in the Airport Association.
Sure do.
Thank you for your input. Yes.
Typically, we have a report from the Airport Association on our agenda, and I noticed it wasn't there.
Yeah.
Are we including that in the future?
I wasn't able to talk with Jonathan. I think it's probably meant to be under public comment, or there's something. Yeah, we'll find that out. I'm sorry.
I think we just had it.
I know, that's,
Well,
that was Harry from the Airport Association right there.
Yeah.
Which is great. Yeah, yes, sir. Come on. Yeah.
Well, first of all, welcome to the new board. Look forward to working with you guys, and you non-pilots that just got on the board, you're welcome to come to our hangar and show you what the smaller planes are about.
Which hangar is yours?
Mine is a Huckleberry hangar. It's a 22,000 square foot complex we built 2 years ago. We divided it into 7 units. And I have a seaplane there, and if you guys would like to take a flight, I'd be glad to take it for a seaplane.
That might be a bribe. I don't know.
I've been doing it for about 50 years. I'm getting used to it, and I also teach safety seminars here, and we do a lot of things at the airport. I've run the flight school here in Part 135 operation over the years. Still do safety seminars, so you guys are welcome to come anytime to our hangar, and especially you, Brian and Schnorchel, if you'd like to take a
Your
flight.
name again was?
Mike Kincaid. I can give you my phone number. And you too, Brett, you haven't been over my.
I haven't been in yours, and
I've
thank
been
you
to
for.
yours, and you're,
Yeah,
So-
well, I was gonna thank you for coming to you came to our city council meeting the other night, gave some comments, so thank you for that.
you're welcome.
Can I get to your facility without a card?
No.
No, you don't have to have a prox card.
Yeah,
Or I could climb the fence and then you'd have to shoot me.
Yeah, somebody would.
that's one thing I'd like to ask, when they change the code, is there any way they could send out emails to the stakeholders and say, hey, there's a new code out there? It would sure be helpful, so we can get into the airport, we don't have a prox guard or something.
Well, you want to clarify that, Mike, we do have one gate that has a keypad.
We have two, we have one on airport, right, and on Cessna,
We got one on Cessna and
and then over here.
On, whatever that
On
road
this
is.
airport, isn't there
Yeah,
something
something
called,
like the electric place.
yeah.
So
if you want to go see Mike, there's no keypad to his gate.
Do they
You have
have
to
to
go around to the,
Do both of those gates have the same code?
okay, so if we could just get notified when those code change, wouldn't it be helpful? To get an airport.
Okay, do you have that there? We'll put that on.
And I understand tomorrow at JV's restaurant, I think that's on Applewhite, somebody told me that Commissioner Brooks is gonna be given a report at 11:30 on new happenings at the airport, so I just found out about that right before the meeting.
When is it?
11:30 tomorrow at JV's.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right, thank you. Any other public comments at this time?
Could I be a?
Yeah.
So I know we've got Andrew King in the audience here and he's come a long way to hear what's going on with us. I don't expect him to make a Avport's recommendation to us, but if you could just introduce yourself so and maybe give your number or whatever to the folks that might want to provide comments to you, Andrew, that would be something you could do.
Yeah, very nice to meet you all. Thanks, Mr. Anderson. I've had a chance to meet a lot of you in the past and Brent and some of you guys. I really appreciate the new board. I know you guys have a lot on your plate and our contract is right there at the top of the talking points for many people. So I appreciate that you all are gonna have to think through that. And there was some, I've said this before, but there were some unintentional missteps before about the way this moved forward in the process and the way it got brought forth on the 27th of December. I tell our guys that I'm glad that didn't work out because we didn't have the opportunity to get public support behind it and understand all the stakeholder perspectives. And there are a bunch of stakeholder perspectives in this room. And I've met, now with the Airport Association and a bunch of people here, and we're continuing to gather information. Also want you all to know that we're not set in our ways on how we're going to do a particular thing or where a particular terminal is going to go. But we're gathering that information, taking, thoughts from the community as well as the stakeholders here. We want to make a decision that's good for everybody. We want to be good people, but we also want to be good business people. And part of that is something that makes sense for the stakeholders at the airport and, the community around the airport, particularly, those who live in Hayden have to drive around the airport. So I appreciate your patience with us as we move forward. We're really very much looking forward to getting to an endpoint on this, but not wanting to rush it and find our way there in a reasonable time, but something that works for everybody. So thanks everybody for your
name?
My name is Andrew King.
Andrew King?
Yes, sir. K-I-N-G.
K-I-N-G.
And my phone number, if anybody has questions, I'll give you my real phone number, 832-623-9051.
And you're with?
Avports, yes, sir, A-V-P-O-R-T-S.
Is that a contracting? No.
So Andrew, I think there might be a few people who don't understand what your project
Do you want
involves.
to just briefly step back and just briefly say what your.
Yeah, so, I don't want it, that's tricky.
You have to be
Yeah.
careful.
So just to step back, Avports put forth a contract. We worked with the airport to take to lease a particular part of the property at the airport to develop a commercial terminal. That was brought forth on the 27th of December. It didn't get a second motion for good reason. And the commissioners wanted to understand it better and talk to the public more, and we agreed with that. And so that's where we are today, is discussing with the public a commercial terminal for commercial service at the COE.
Okay, thank you. That may be an item that will be coming forward to this board in the future, possibly, and then also the OCC. So I don't want to spend a ton of time on it tonight.
I was just gonna, for the record, we haven't had a chance to hear a presentation from Avports, and I would recommend it being the agenda.
Yeah, right. At some point, when, I think we're gonna get some direction on that, so I don't wanna. We are prepping a presentation for this board, so that's on our, that's on our minds. All right. Well,
Yeah,
thank you all.
Thank you, Andrew.
All right. Anyone else? Yes, sir, come on up.
Yeah, my name is Justin Knowles and I'm a resident, local resident here. And my only comment is when you guys do receive a potential, I guess, proposal, I'd like to understand the process that you guys are going to go through to evaluate it. And at least understand what the steps as a citizen that you guys are going to go through to ensure that there's all the stakeholders in the area are considered.
Well, I don't know, we can tell you that in advance, you can have.
No, I just want to make sure it's on mind that as a citizen, I would want to be able to.
You'll get advance notice of the agenda and you can look and see if anything's on there that you're interested in.
Yeah, thank you.
So I have a question. Are you a resident just in the area or
No, I'm
actually a
immediately-
stakeholder?
I live immediately adjacent to the airport.
Okay.
All right. One last call here. Any other public comments? All right,
Okay, one more question.
yes,
For Steve. So you said virtual tower. What's a virtual tower?
Mike, you wanna address that?
Yeah, a virtual tower is a tower operated, say, at a remote site such as Beltsville Tower could operate or a Geiger. So they have guys that say in a dark room in a basement and they're monitoring up to maybe 42 cameras or even more at an airport. And for example, Hagedon's pilot flew into an airport last summer and he didn't even know it was a virtual tower. Everything was just normal, like there was a guy up on the building, direct right to land, and it turned out it was a tower being operated in some other state, many states away. So it works great. It's a lot cheaper.
Well, sure.
Yeah.
But I've heard some horror stories about airport control towers not being able to see even the end of the runway and still making stupid decisions. So how would they do that with cameras? But I guess that's another discussion.
Yeah, the camera starting to be a lot better than one set of eyes up in a tall building, because you have cameras all over the airport.
so I'm gonna kind of stop us there because it's not on the agenda to discuss that, but good, quick clarification.
And one other
On that,
clarification.
thank you.
I was told the other day, there's no fire department on the airport.
That's incorrect.
That's incorrect.
The airport has a fire station and has staff.
A what station?
Aircraft rescue firefighting station. It's on the north side of the field. The airport staff is trained on fire rescue.
So it's essentially a volunteer fire.
No.
Airport's like real one.
All right, I think that's all the items on our agenda. I do want to just mention, as we have a couple of the board members that were on before, Chairman Gefeller is back there. We also have Aaron Salzer, and wanted to thank the board that was on before for their time and efforts, and appreciate their time, and now we move forward with the new board, and look forward to meeting you guys in many meetings, so we get to know you a little better. Anyways, appreciate your patience with me tonight. I did not know I was going to be leading this meeting. And
You did a great job.
and, anyways, I'm glad we have a new chair. So with that, we'll have a motion to adjourn this meeting.
I moved to adjourn.
Second.
I
Aye.
told you what we.
All right.